midnight.
This video is brought to you by Nebula. When I look around at the TV shows, movies, comics, upcoming video games, and merchandise, I come away feeling that Star Wars is doing just fine. But the problem when you're Star Wars, and you're owned by the biggest media conglomerate in the world, is that fine isn't good enough. Star Wars is always expected to be one of the biggest franchises in entertainment. And it definitely is. But these days, the franchise feels like it's on a bit of shaky ground. As for the reason for this, many, of course, will happily point the finger at The Last Jedi. A movie I thought was just kind of okay, but somehow managed to inspire years worth of arguments and the ability to turn any YouTube comment section into just a sarlacc pit of terribleness. Some people love it, some people think it's the worst thing ever, and I don't want to relitigate all of that because there's 1,000,001 other channels already doing it. But I will say that releasing so many Star Wars movies so close together, one of which people never stop talking about, I think kind of added up to a lot of franchise fatigue for many out there. And Solo's box office kind of bared that out. Honestly, I haven't made a Star Wars video since that movie, and a big reason why is it's just kind of exhausting to talk about this franchise on the internet right now. But then I saw the new Rise of Skywalker teaser, and I gotta say, some small piece of that cynicism kind of fell away, and I felt like writing a video on it. I want Rise of Skywalker to be great. I want it to blow away expectations and deliver the best Star Wars movie of the Disney era. But what I find so interesting about this teaser is the push and pull between the eye-rollingly predictable and some of the more surprising reveals. And I think that sums up the central conflict this movie is facing nicely. Can this franchise make bold decisions, or will it constantly be in the shadow of what's come before?
You can test your racing skills in the Pod Race Challenge game. Customize a pod racer, then burn across the desert and intend.
Rise's teaser begins with a little montage of previous Star Wars movies. And look, I have mixed feelings about this. Maybe it's unfair of me to feel this way because pretty much every legacy franchise does this now. But I gotta say, after years of comics and games, and of course the new movies, I'm kinda tired of these same old clips of the original trilogy being used to sell me something new. I mean, I love A New Hope. Empire is a masterpiece. Return of the Jedi is also a movie that exists. I'm perfectly happy acknowledging all of that. But Disney has been trading on this specific imagery for like half a decade now, and I'm kinda tired of it. But then the teaser jumped into prequel stuff and I was honestly pleasantly surprised. Are those movies great? I don't think so, but they were filled with incredible art design and really big, meaty sci-fi concepts. And as someone who grew up with them, it's nice to see that Disney has finally gone beyond just kind of being ashamed of those movies and sweeping them under the rug, which they seemed really eager to do back in 2015. I mean, they're even bringing Clone Wars back. But yeah, I felt starting the teaser with old footage was maybe a little cynical, but honestly, it did do the job. And with that John Williams score, how could it not? Then we get to the new footage, and to talk about it, we need to talk about one man, J.J. Abrams. You know, I don't know if there's a filmmaker around whose work I have a more complicated relationship with at this point. As a kid, I was an obsessive fan. I loved Alias, I loved his work on Lost, I loved the Star Trek reboot, Mission Impossible 3, even Felicity. And you know what? I still do. I think the guy makes a very entertaining movie almost every time. With the possible exception of Star Trek Into Darkness, I've never walked out of an Abrams movie disappointed. He's a crowd pleaser, but he's also hard to dismiss as just your regular journeyman studio director. Like any auteur director, Abrams has obsessions and themes that he comes back to again and again. And no matter what you think about his mystery box philosophy of storytelling, there's no denying that there's not really anyone quite like him, which is more than you can say about a lot of interchangeable blockbuster directors. But what's most interesting about Abrams directing this particular Star Wars is the fact that Episode 9 is the end. Well, okay, not to the whole franchise, I'm sure, but at least to this trilogy. And that's a big deal for Star Wars, and especially for Abrams himself. Because I don't know if I've ever seen him have to finish something. Not really. He didn't write or direct the last episode of Alias, Felicity, or Lost. The last of which he really only worked on in the pilot anyway. And he didn't do a conclusive ending to his Star Trek films. So he's just never really been in this position before. And that's actually really interesting to me. What happens when the guy best known for setting things up, whether it be in Lost or The Force Awakens, is actually tasked with bringing this massive story to an end? I have no idea, but I have a couple guesses.
As heroes in the galaxy.
Well, second most famous.
The first, and far less optimistic, is that he plays this as predictable and by the book as possible. There's rumors circulating about yet another Death Star in this movie, and I mean, come on. I was actually fairly forgiving of Starkiller Base in Force Awakens, because for me that just seemed like an okay time to play it safe. This is not. The finale is where I really think they need to take some more creative risks. Another Death Star would be the exact opposite. Couple that with bringing Palpatine back, and yeah, things are looking pretty derivative. That doesn't necessarily spell doom, like things can be derivative and still work with the right material, but it's not really what I want to see. On the other hand, we have the most talked about aspect of the teaser, Rey with the double-sided red lightsaber. I really don't know what to think about this, because I feel like it almost has to be a fake out. Rey going evil would probably risk a ton of toy sales or something, so why would they do it? Setting that aside though, let's say they did. I really think that would be interesting. She doesn't even have to end the movie evil or anything, just her crossing over would be pretty surprising for me. Now, surprising doesn't automatically equal good storytelling, of course, but I think it could be here. I like Daisy Ridley as a performer, but I think her character has been a little generic and underwritten overall. And fans are always so obsessed with the parent thing, like who her mom and dad were. And I don't know, honestly, I never found that a very interesting question, and apparently The Last Jedi agreed with me. I don't want more lore surrounding Rey, I need Rey herself to be a more well-rounded, multi-dimensional character. And I think a big shift in her character like this could lead to that, even if that lightsaber design seems a little unpractical. More than anything, I want Rise of Skywalker to push these characters into new territory and prove that they're not just relying on the general outline of the original trilogy. And I actually think The Last Jedi set up some interesting stuff for Kylo Ren that could really pay off big in this movie. Abrams has also basically said that the entire gang will spend most of this film together, which I'm pretty happy about, since I think The Last Jedi suffered in places from how disjointed the individual plotlines could be. I really want the whole cast bouncing off each other, and it's looking like Episode 9 will feature a lot of that. I also want to see Finn get more time in the spotlight here, since I thought he was pretty misused in The Last Jedi, turning what had been a very fun, unique character into a pretty straightforward hero. John Boyega is great, and I really think he could be this series' secret weapon if they just let him.
Señores Big Mac and Geeks! Can't miss out of this.
But mostly, I just want J.J. Abrams and his screenwriters to have a cathartic and emotionally satisfying ending in mind for these characters, with no scenes that are just obviously there to set up sequels. Abrams is the king of setting things up, of teasing big questions. And I think on a visual level, he's pretty great too. He really knows how to tap into the iconography of Star Wars. But the central question I have going into this movie is still, can he end a story? Honestly, I like The Force Awakens quite a bit. I know a lot of people have turned on that movie, but for me, it still holds up as a well-paced, exciting Star Wars story. But the end of a trilogy is very different. A good sense of wonder and potential is no longer enough, and I'm really eager to see how Abrams handles that. Because when you really get down to it, I'm still a big fan, and I'd love to see him knock this one out of the park. So, in case you're interested in seeing more from me, this isn't actually my only video this week. I just did a video that's about to come out on my favorite TV opening of all time, Cheers, over on a new streaming site called Nebula. Nebula is amazing because it gives creators like me a chance to make videos that YouTube's algorithm might not normally be into. And I'm far from alone. Along with my thoughts on Cheers, you'll find Just Right's video on Batman the Animated Series' iconic opening. And that's just the beginning. Some of the most interesting creators on YouTube like CGP Grey, Windover Productions, and Patrick H. Willems, among a lot of others, are already making Nebula a really unique and exciting new site. I had a really great time digging into Cheers in a way that I normally wouldn't get to, and I'd love for you to check it out by going to watchnebula.com/CaptainMidnight, where you'll be able to sign up for only $5 a month. This is a really exciting place for independent creators, and you can go there right now at watchnebula.com/CaptainMidnight.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once, because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started, because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.